A person, I think it's the same person, has given a link either on this channel twice or on both of my channels once to a video and apparently wants me to comment on it. I'll be doing so, but I'll also be critiquing the video uploader and the editing. 2016, July 27th at 9:31 a.m., we see a video with this information on the screen. It's done in a different way, but that's the most likely year, month, day, hour, minute, second. And it says audibly, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney, and then on the screen it shows the name for said prosecuting attorney, but for reasons I'm going to get into in a minute, we can't trust the spelling, but it doesn't say the Deputy Prosecuting Attorney's name. Anyway, we hear some things from the person in the middle of the screen. I'll get to that again later. And then we hear this. Request for Case 5 DTC 1600451 be dismissed with prejudice in favor of defendant William Dennis. And dismissing with prejudice is then explained to William Dennis by the judge. And the judge explains that they're not asking him whether or not it should be dismissed. They're stating it will be dismissed and that he will be given information on what to do concerning it, like having records of this to prove that it has been, so that someone can't just simply file the case again. And it's presumed if you have a case dismissed with prejudice, most of the time it's because it should have never been brought in the first place, so it might have been brought frivolously and is found out during the court case as being basically someone using the legal system to harass some poor person. Or it could be a case that was brought by a disreputable member of the legal system, police department, could have been even the prosecuting attorney, being the deputy prosecuting attorney, is dealing with something brought by one of her colleagues that should not have been allowed. Anyway, the motion to dismiss with prejudice is allowed immediately because the only person that could ever do that and not have to have a discussion is the person who is at least representing the entity that brought it. Anyway, throughout all of the video, in the beginning and also right after he'd been told this, William Dennis said a bunch of nonsense he got off the internet. Even also in the way he had introduced himself in the first place, using a convoluted and fancy-sounding way of introducing himself by his name. And after he was told that the case was going to be dismissed because he doesn't really have any say in it, the person who brought the case is requesting it be withdrawn and not be allowed again. And again, as I said, it's probably because maybe the prosecutor's office was tricked into harassing the poor person. And that's literally what happened. The individual in the center of the screen, being William Dennis, is not actually doing anything to cause the case to be dismissed, except first, the only thing he said up to that point was, again, using a very convoluted version of his name, saying the word hyphen and that sort of thing. Now, this video was uploaded by M/E Sagittarius Arm Society YouTube channel. And this was uploaded November 28th, 2020, with comments turned off and with a description that disavows its title, which says something along the line of David Winn Miller's quantum syntax grammar, sovereign citizen man, sovereign citizen or freeman on the land person, had beaten the court judge. Now, if you're not aware of it, one of the ways of avoiding discussing a subject accurately is to misdirect people as to what you're discussing about and who you're discussing it about. If you're in a courtroom, the prosecutor is supposed to adversarially attempt to prove that you've done something, and you or your defense attorney are supposed to defend yourself by disproving these statements or showing good reason for them to be ignored. Now, I want to point out again, the person in the middle of the screen, who is presumably, we still don't have this accurate necessarily, named William Dennis, did nothing of the sort. Now, the rest of the video, which also might have the deputy prosecuting attorney's name pronounced correctly, so we could actually look this up, the rest of the video has been very carefully edited out, and I want to point out that the text that's put up on the screen that's supposed to be what the person is saying, what any of them are saying, you can look at the text and discover that it is not even phonetically similar to what some of the things are being said, And some of the things that are said are very clear. So it's obvious that these basically typed up statements on the screen are probably completely useless. Therefore, since the name of the prosecuting attorney is only listed as ASHLE and then L, I think it's another L, ANELLE. It could also be something as simple as Llanelli or Llanelli. That cannot be trusted, number one, because, again, we can't hear the person's name. And number two, if this is spelled the other way it could be, this would be a Gaelic name, and I don't think any translator program is going to work with that. There's a joke about Scottish and Irish people attempting to use voice-activated systems. Go look it up. But anyway, but the main meat of the matter is that the person bringing the case against, William Dennis, is withdrawing it, which, if you're not aware of it as a defendant, is one of the few things you probably can't object against and be taken seriously. Now, where do sovereign citizens or sovereign man or freemen on the land or these contrarians come from, and what is this based on? Now, every lie, not every lie, many, many lies have a grain of truth to them. Let's talk about activists. Let's say you know that Dr. Stephen Strange is being brought into the court to prosecute him for witchcraft because he's totally a wizard, a sorcerer, not a witch. So you decide you're going to make sure he doesn't have his day in court and make sure he doesn't have it in a timely way. Let's say it's long enough ago and you're in a part of the country that still follows this rule that if you cannot get a court case gone through in a timely manner, at least in a reasonable manner of time, it has to be dropped. So you decide you're going to bog down the court with so many cases that do have priority, that have to be processed immediately for whatever reason, even if it's to dismiss them, that you can prevent him from ever coming to court and saying, release him. Or don't tell him you're doing that for releasing him. Tell him, no, truly, I'm bringing this complaint about my dogs, the dogs next door barking too much, dags. I'm not tying up your court system to make you to where you can't prosecute Dr. Strange. Now, at one time, this would have worked in many court systems. Basically, if you cannot receive justice without it being delayed, it cannot be served. So you have to be released. Unless there's something extremely bad you've done. And again, if it's a witch hunt, literally, you can't really do that. Now, the other reason a person might fill courts with frivolous court cases with endless reams and reams and reams of motions to slow down the court is to make sure a court case can't be prosecuted cleanly and make it expensive and time-consuming so that you can hope the prosecutor drops it. This is a tactic done by lawyers all the time. It should also be pointed out that unless you have a really rich law firm that can get very creative with hiding the fact that they're doing this, it's going to be called out in court because too many people got wind of the idea that to avoid, anything from taxes to a parking ticket, if you just waste the court's time enough, it becomes financially prohibitively expensive to take you to court. So what did the court system do? The court system just started taxing people more and kept prosecuting anyway, so it doesn't work anymore. Wesley Snipes and other people have been talked into doing these basically bog down the courts kind of verbal and paper terrorism of the court system to make the court bow down to their will. Now, once the court figures out that's happening, it will absolutely invoke a very basic set of things like, are you attempting to slow down the court? No. Okay, do you understand that we can disbar you if we get any indication of this? Most lawyers won't do this anymore because you get disbarred. You can't even represent a person pro bono as a private citizen. And now we get to the next stage. A lot of people started imitating this and even trying to make money on the internet, lying to you about it still working. So they sell systems, as they sometimes call them. And it's basically that you have to sit there and convince the judge you really believe the BS you're saying. And instead of going for you're incompetent to stand trial because you're mentally unhinged, you try to prove to them that you have some novel version of the law to bring up. Now, after you've done the same system over and over again, someone's been selling since 2002, the court system's going to adapt to it. And after a while, they now bring it up as frivolous pseudo-legal arguments. That's the not-so-convoluted version of you're bullshitting me and you're not allowed to do that anymore. Now, the way they combat it is very simple. Most of the people who bring these cases have no clue what they're talking about. Sovereign citizens, freemen on the land, quantum grammar Nazis, as I call them, that use this also, by the way, as paper terrorism or legal malicious prosecution of people to harass people. They will do the same thing, imitating what some lawyers actually get away with doing. And again, sometimes this is activists doing it, but it still doesn't change the fact that the court system can say, we're not putting up with this crap. Now, one of the things they'll ask an individual, as I was saying, most individuals do not really know how this works, is they'll ask them, do you claim to understand what you are saying? And it's a trap. You're not supposed to answer the question, but there's nothing you can do about it. They're asking you a point of order, basically. Do you know what you're talking about? If you say no, you're not allowed to do it anymore. If you say yes, they're going to make you explain it in plain English, not legalese, because in a courtroom, it has to make rational sense to an ordinary and prudent person who would be on a jury. Whether you have a jury or not, it has to make sense. You have to be able to transliterate and translate, Laura Ipsum style Latinese bullshit sounding stuff that you see in movies and TV, which never really actually means anything, by the way. Actually translate it into English and actually demonstrate competency. At which point, if you refuse to do it or fail to do it, or actually admit you don't know what you're talking about, they state you do not have the competency necessary to act as your own attorney. Or they'll just say you're incompetent to work in a courtroom as a member of the court or as your own counsel. And then they'll tell you you have to get a lawyer, whether it be free, provided by the court system, or you pay for it. And they'll give you 24 hours because that's really all they have to do. They don't have to do more than that. And they state you're legally forbidden from representing yourself in a court case because you were incompetent, not incompetent to stand trial, incompetent to defend yourself in court because you do not know what you're doing. And it's not some mind trap you can wiggle out of. You have to demonstrate competency or you're not allowed to act as a lawyer or a representative. Even if you're a parent, you can be told you're not allowed to represent your kid in a courtroom. Why? Because you're talking your kid into a fucking prison sentence. They won't let you do that because then it can be thrown out later. The court system has to defend itself from, basically frivolous retrials. So, and you might imagine some lawyers have thought up, I'll just act like an idiot and ruin the case and they can sue me for incompetence and they'll still get off. Well, that's again a trick that's been disabled in the system. Now, when, if ever, did this work? Again, harassing the court system into submission has actually worked a couple of times, but not really much. The other reason people do it is they pay a high-powered lawyer to gum up the system so they don't show up in court for a long time, mostly as a delaying tactic, sometimes to actually just keep the case from ever showing up in court. You can hear about cases that take literally years to show up in court while they keep negotiating. Well, what if he just pays a little fine? A little bit more, maybe. Come on, work with me. Forget about it. That kind of thing. But the other reason is to harass. Now, this is a guess. We're not being given enough information because ME Sagittarius Arm Society, the YouTube channel uploading this, number one, their title is lying about what happened. Number two, they disabled comments so nobody can post a comment saying it, so here's a video. And next, I have to point out, they don't give context to where it is from and it's heavily edited. The most likely cause for this person, William Dennis, to be brought into a court with a case so shitty that it would be bordering on malicious prosecution and need to be dismissed with prejudice so no one can bring the same complaint against him, would be another sovereign citizen harassing him. I don't know if you know this, but the most likely victim of sovereign citizen prosecution are other people who are part of the same group of people. Because they'll do this against each other. They start fucking arguments on the internet and in person sometimes. This could be just a next door neighbor fucking with him. I don't know. It could have been somebody swatting him. But anyway, the prosecutor decided, not only am I going to drop the case against this person, I'm going to make it to where someone else can't bring it up either. Because what it means is that you have to prove to a judge pretty much that the case has merit and the guy's guilty of something before you're even allowed to charge him, which is the way it should be, don't you think? So what happened here is William Dennis was probably a victim of someone harassing him. Could have been somebody in the legal system. Seriously. It could have been anybody. It could have been another sovereign citizen. But either way, the person who had the job of taking him down and ruining his life decided not only not to hurt him, but to make him invulnerable to the same case. But William Dennis did not do himself any favors in the video and is not actually saying anything that would affect the outcome of his case, except to maybe aggravate the judge or possibly keep it continued against the will of the prosecutor. In spite of himself, he won. And that's good, I think. But unless we have context, we don't know. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.